Welcome everybody. I'm Yvette Seeley-Jones and I'm a member of the Digital Learning Lead team with Anglophone School District West. Welcome to LearnEast 2020 and session B1, MS Teams as a virtual learning platform. We want to welcome Luc. Luc is one of our newest members of our digital learning team, and he's actually worked with MS Teams in his classroom, so he's the perfect person to show us a little more of what this might look like in your classroom potentially. Thanks for taking the time to share your expertise and experience with us, Luc. Just a reminder to check and make sure your mics are closed. You may leave out your video on if you wish. And if you have any questions during the session, you can add them to the chat box, which is on the right-hand side there. And I'll be here to answer them as we go along, as well as Mark Michaud, our other digital learning lead. And Luc said he'll stop occasionally during his presentation to kind of ask for questions. So I think we're ready to start, Luc.
Super. Thanks, folks. Thanks for joining me today. As Yvette said, I'm kind of like the new kid on the block, so I've got that first day jitters, if you want to call it that. I have been using Microsoft Teams and OneNote in my classroom for the last couple of years, and by no means am I an expert, but I'll share a couple of things with you here as we go through this morning. I just want to start out with by saying that you can access it in two different manners. One being the web-based or the online version, which is through your office, office.com. On the left-hand side here, you'll see all your apps, and your apps basically Teams is where we want to go. So as this loads exactly what I see on my desktop app, which I prefer to use. However, we do recommend that when students are logging in, that's probably better for them to log in the web-based app, in that they don't have to actually physically log in and out of a desktop app as well. So this is our home away from home when we don't have our computer, and it also allows us to have that access when we're on the road, or as I said before, you don't have access to your computer. I prefer to use the desktop app, which I've loaded on my machine here, and it is the same as what we see on our online version as well. I usually go over the panel here with my students, and I do want to preface this by saying that I use this in my grade 9 classroom. So it's my grade 9 BBT classes is what I use this with most. They were the pilots for me. And they were able to sort things out with me as we both learned together. So the panel on the left, we have the activity. So when you click on the activity, it basically gives you the activity that's taking place in your teams in this panel right here. There's also a chat function, and the chat function shows the chat that's been taking place in the different teams and or meetings that you've been working with. There's an assignment tab and a calendar tab. I haven't used the calendar tab a whole lot, I have to say, but I do know that it syncs to the calendar in all of our Microsoft products in our apps. Calls obviously is what we're using today, and we can reach out to one another through the calls as well. In our Teams function here, what I want to go through today is talk a little bit about setting up a team and creating a team. With the pandemic that we've all gone through, we all know that the Department of Education, the EECD, has created teams for us, and I'm going to guess and suspect that that's probably going to take place again, that they will create teams for us. When they create a team, you'll know that when you load your specific team here, you'll have a banner at the top that'll basically indicate to you that this team will not be active until you actually launch the team. So what I want to do is just go through some basics that I've done with setting up a team and then working within the team as well. So what we'll do is we'll set up a demo team. So we're going to go with create a team. When we're creating a team, we are focusing today primarily on a classroom team. However, you can create other types of teams as well. We've set teams up in our own school and our organization where we have a personal or professional learning community as well, where we share files and information in chat. And there's also the class, which is basically what we're looking to do today. So I'm going to click on class. I'm just going to call this one LearnEast. Give it a name. You can skip this step, and I'll go back a little bit. Because I've used it with my grade 9s, I didn't take the time to actually physically load all my team members. However, when the department puts it in, everything will be put in there for you. So this is just showing if you were to create a team on your own. I'm going to set up some people here in this particular team. I'm going to pick on Jeff because Jeff always picks on me. And I know I saw Malcolm Mulligan in here, if he's still here. And I believe I also saw Jen Keating. So I'm going to add these folks to the team. And we'll get our team going. I lost you. Okay. So here's my LearnEast team here. I'm going to go through a couple things here. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to talk a little bit about the team creation, which we just did. And then we're going to talk a little bit about manage the team itself. So managing the team, which is the first thing we want to do, is clicking these 3 dots here, going to manage team. You're able to see different roles that people have here. For example, myself, I'm the owner. I also have these folks here created as owners right now. It is a good idea that if you're creating a team and it's a classroom team, that you actually have another team member, in other words, another teacher. If something happens to you, you go away, you're on sick leave or whatever the case might be, that other teacher actually takes ownership of your team as well. So I'm going to change these roles here. Move this out of the way. And because they are, well, actually I should have put them in as students. So what I've done when I usually do this in my classroom is I try to mute the chat, because if we're doing this in a classroom environment, there's no need for the chat to be opened up. So the first thing I'll do is I'll mute all my students. That way they're not actually joining into a chat that's away from the classroom. I recognize this the first time I tried it with my grade 12s. We set up a team, and before I had time to mute them, they had all taken over the chat. They had GIFs going, they had memes going all over the place, and they basically cluttered up the posts. So as a precaution, I always mute my students. In this case here, because it is an online platform that we want to use, I will not mute my students, but I do want to give you that option there as well. Okay. There are some other things in here that we can work on in terms of these 3 little dots here, and one is, we'll come back to this in a little bit, is the add channel. I'll give you some examples of 2 of the classes that I have and how I've used this in my classroom as well. That might actually give you a little bit of insight as to how it looks. I know this is kind of a sterile environment here where we're just creating something, but we'll just shoot with this here for the beginning. So while this is setting up here, I want to talk to you a little bit about the tabs at the top. Posts are basically our main chat, so this is where most of the conversations will take place. I can share files with students here. I can call out some students. I can send notifications from this area as well. And the files tab here, well, they're going to get that ready for us. I'll just skip that for a second. I'll come back in a minute. So posts, the files, and the assignment tabs are the ones that I use the most with my students. The assignment tabs, lately, what we've used them as, especially when I first started out, was these were created as drop boxes for my students. They had assignments because we were face-to-face. They had assignments that some of them were basically handed out in class. They did the work and then they pulled them in and dropped them into drop boxes here. The nice thing about the assignments tab in the assignment section here is that you have the ability to review their work and add feedback and give them a grade as well. So they're actually seeing your feedback. The ability to provide the formative feedback as well comes in handy. You look at the work, you can give them feedback, they can resubmit the work if they'd like as well, and then you can assign a grade and or provide more feedback for them as well. So these 3 tabs are the ones that we use the most. In the Files tab here, one interesting thing is that you have an element here of class materials. This class materials file here that you have, a folder here, is in such a way that it is locked. So the only people who can edit this will be the teacher or the owners. The students can download, they can get materials from this particular file, but they can't adjust it in any way. So the particular files here, for example, you have the ability to go into your class materials. And as I moved forward into my year, I created new folders. So for example, I'll create a new folder here. I'm just going to call this drill bits. I know I said that I did it with my grade 9, but I also did it with my applied tech classes, my woodworking classes. And I have the ability to then direct the students to this work. Not only can I direct it to this work or to this folder, I can also link files that I have in these places as well. As I went through, students learn the routine of getting used to knowing where the files are. However, just to make sure that students were aware of the files or the postings, I always would drop a file or a conversation in the posts here. So what I'll do is I'll show you, if I do, for example, here, I can attach the file here. I can go to my recent, I can browse my teams and channels, my OneDrive, or I can upload it from my computer. Matt mentioned in the onset that Microsoft has been working diligently to make changes, and as we've gone through this over the last couple of years, changes and updates take place. This is one that I've recently found as well, is that as we were doing work, you actually now have the ability to place the file that you're uploading for your students in a particular location, but only in the Generals tab. So in this case here, I'm actually able to upload the file into the folder that I've created in my Files tab. So as this rolls through, I'll be actually physically be able to put this up for my students. So they have the ability to take this from here, or in whatever time they want to come in, they can actually go into their class materials, come into their files, look into the drill bits folder that they know is there. And again, this is part of the routine that you set up with your students, is how to access the materials that you've provided for them. And there's the file right here as well. Okay, so the posts are specifics to the students, file sharing. You can also have conversations here as well. Are there any questions? I know I'm going through pretty fast. I guess it's my first creation here. So
Jennifer has a question. She says, once the class is live, is there a place to put upcoming work that students don't have access to until you are ready for them to see it?
I don't. The only thing that I've done in the past is I've uploaded material into the class materials folder. That's basically locked. They don't know to go there unless they have that particular knowledge that this is where all the files are. But I've never been able to upload anything that the students haven't seen. So the only thing that, I guess, Jennifer, the only way that they're not going to see the information is that for you to prepare your team and then not launch the team. But I'm not aware of any way of preventing students from seeing anything once the team is live.
Okay, and Malcolm just asked, does the file automatically go to the file when you post it to the post tab? And there's a couple people saying yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's something new. I don't recall that taking place. Yvette, I'm not sure, yourself and Mark, you've worked with it as well. And this may have been one of the updates that was recently launched. I'm not sure. And maybe I just never noticed it before.
Yeah, I think it's always been like that. I hadn't noticed it at first, but I started realizing that stuff that I was posting in the channel would automatically appear in the file section as well. I didn't notice it at first, but
Okay.
it's always been like that.
Okay, good. Which is nice because now we know where the files are, and I know there's some students who are anxious to get started on work and they see it in the post, but other students, when they know there's a new assignment or there's new work being delivered, they are conscious of the fact that it's going to the files. And my grade 9s were like that, where they knew that when they were finished one particular activity, they knew that the next activity, before I even launched it or asked them to do it, they knew where to get it.
Yeah, if it stayed in the channel, it would get lost after a while.
That's right. That's right, and it does. Okay, so that's basically the posting. One of the things I also have done in the past is with my grade 9s, when we first started our grade 9 work, we left everything in the general tab. And the general tab basically was, because we're doing the piloting, a lot of our work was basically from the files. So everything that I worked with the students, I put in the class materials, I put it in file folders, and I organized my file folders in such a manner that I had the ability to basically tell them, these are your modules that you're working on. For example, if you were working on Microsoft Word, your Word module is uploaded in the files. It's up to you to go in and grab activity 1, activity 2, activity 3. And in relation to those activities, once they're done, they uploaded their completed work into the assignments that they had basically as a Dropbox. As COVID hit, we started to explore this a little bit, and I think everybody's learning curve kind of took a steep incline. We all had to figure out, how are we going to do this? How are we going to create? How are we not going to confuse our students? And one of the ways that we made this possible was to create new channels. So over here in these 3 little dots, you have an add channel. So what we did is create, for example, a channel that was specific to a unit that we're working on. So I'm going to put drill bits. And I also want to make sure that it's standard accessible to everyone on the team. I want to make sure it shows this channel on everyone's channel list as well. So I want to make sure I select that. And I add it. It should appear under here. And one thing that we noted quickly was that if I created different channels on the left, it would be alphabeticalized. So I noticed after maybe 2 or 3 times, oops, now my list has changed a little bit. So as you're creating your new channels, it's not a bad idea to have a method to ensure that they are in the order that you'd like for them to come up. So whether they're alphabetical, whether you include a number in it. So what I did in the past is I created several channels, and as I create my channels, I ensured that I put that number in place, and therefore it would keep things in order for me. And you know, some people, what they'll do is they'll put numbers at the end, for example. I put my numbers at the beginning. And speaking with the channels themselves, these are public channels. You also have the ability to create a channel in that perhaps there's an entire class and you want your students to have their own channel, so therefore you can connect with them on an individual basis. At the high school level, we really didn't do that. It was basically open to everybody. I sat in on Jeff Whipple's and Yvette's session here last week at the Learning Week, and one of the things that they talked about was that if you're going to create a personalized channel, that you create it using the letter Z, so therefore all of your students are at the bottom of your list, and you can make that a private channel. I'm picking on Malcolm today. Sorry, Malcolm. No, I'm not going to apologize for that. Thanks, Malcolm. So now when Malcolm logs into this team, he's the only one that sees this private channel, and this indicates it right here. So if I go to this channel here, I have the ability to actually look and converse and share things with Malcolm on a personal level as well. So maybe in the middle school, even in the upper elementary school, These might be areas where teachers are going to organize their classrooms in a way that they have the ability to have those channels selected just for their students on their own. So, channels. Any questions?
No questions in the chat. Does anybody have a question they'd like to share?
So we talked about the general tab.
Just one second.
Okay,
one
sorry.
question here. It says, did you create a channel for each unit you taught?
I did, yes. So let's see if I can pop back in my teams here, and I'll go into an archive team that I had from last year, and so this is one of the teams that I had here during the COVID. So what I did is I had created all these different channels for all of different work that the students had. So the general tab was basically, I ended up telling them, listen, there's a new section, there's a new tab, there's a new work there for you. I also set up another channel here where I have the ability to actually look at any questions specific to what was going on. These are all my units that we worked on, and in each section, I provided them the information that they needed, plus some information as well in terms of what is needed from them. One thing that's interesting is that all the other channels that you create, the tabs at the top, you basically have post files and notes. It's not until you get into the general tab that you see you have the assignments tab. So they need to also learn that if they're going to submit assignments, if you're going to use this for assignments, that they know that they have to look in the general tab to get to the assignments tab itself.
Is there a limit to the number of folders you can put in under the general channel?
I haven't reached that number yet. No. No. So I'm not 100% sure if there is a specific number. I will pop back into my my grade 9 class, which should be at the bottom of my list here. So my grade 9s knew that this is where they had to go. And these are the files that we had in here, and each one of these have files in them as well.
And did you create folders in the assignment folder tab?
You don't create folders in the assignments tab. I can go over that shortly. I wasn't planning on going into assignments, but we certainly can go into assignments, that's for sure. So the folders I created were only in the class materials, and that basically broke down into the units of work that the grade 9s did. So I'll also show you in the posts themselves. Usually the members, if there's anything posted, the members, if they're logged in, they should get a notification that there's been some activity. The activity usually shows up in their activity tab over here. But let's say, for example, that I wanted to make sure that they got some information, or they wanted some information specifically, I can actually go at, and then I can pick the team and give them some information, and therefore they should receive an email notification as well, as though there has been some notification or some activity in their specific team.
Luke,
Yeah.
are you able to show us, once you build one grade 9 class, is there an easy way to move things to another grade 9 class?
I have, something that I have put on my list of something to learn this year, if it is possible at all, because I find that I had 2 identical classes, and what I found that I had to do was take information from one, copy and paste it in my other class. So basically, I took all the files and put it up there. Now, in speaking with Jeff towards the end of last year, actually the year before, we were talking about, is there a way when you create a team, and I have not done this, but when you create a team and you create a class, can you use an existing team as a template? So I don't know for sure, folks, whether that's something that you can take from one team and give it into another team, so you don't have to recreate. Mark, what about you? Have you had any experience with that, or has that been a question that's come up?
It has. The file structures and teams is attached to OneNote. So I'm in the when school starts up again, one of the things I want to be able to do is see if I can. It's easy to do work in the back end where you can just copy and paste the OneNote from one to the other and everything populate. But yeah, if you have a Teams that you've used and you create it from scratch and use the template, all your files will come with it.
Okay.
Not the students, but the files will.
Okay.
Remember that the district ones created don't allow you to modify them much.
Okay.
They come all created, but you can't be editing them very much. So we're looking into that as well.
Okay. And that's interesting because I did once the Department of Education set up all my teams because of the pandemic, I actually hid those teams because I had my teams already set up for my classes because we had been doing the work. So Mark, that's a good point, that there is a lot less that you can do with those specifically created teams.
Some of the teachers have had specific requests, and we've been telling them that you can easily copy and paste the team and then hide the district one, and you've got a little bit of flexibility with the one that you copied and pasted from, and the students come with it as well.
Okay. I'm just going to add a file, a Word document here. And show you that when this is published to the posts, that when the students click on the specific file and when they open them up within the in the file folder, they should have access to, when it opens up in the Word Online, they have the ability to work in it. They also can open it in the browser. They can also download their own copy. Now, one of the issues that I had with some of the students is they didn't know this part. They didn't know that they could actually physically download this. So I had a student in particular who took this document at home, they printed it out, and then they scanned it with their phone and put it back in their assignment Dropbox for me. So one of the things that I basically talked to my students about was that they had the ability to, when they opened the file, to physically download the file, so they have their own copy. And then we start talking about the file naming, and that if they want to, they can add their name to it. So that way, when I'm looking at the files, if I pull all the files off, I have the ability to say, okay, well, I know this is James. This is James's file because he put his name, James Drill Bit Review Sheet. So, and those are things that we kind of work through. I guess I'm going to call them growing pains as we've gone through. And learning, I basically learned alongside the students, and the students were rock stars. They were anxious at first, but then they became quite knowledgeable in using this particular platform. So the assignments. So this was more, I kind of geared this more towards the end here because I'm not sure if this will allow me to do this. I'm going to assume that it's going to. In the assignments tab here, it allows you to create, I refer to this to my students more as drop boxes. These are assignments that I've created, but I created them in such a fashion that they knew that they were drop boxes. So if I click on create, I can create from existing work that I have already done. I can do a quiz, which I have not worked in, and I can also do an assignment. So when I'm ready to do this assignment, I would also give it a title. I'll stick with the drill bits. Instructions, students knew over time that all they had to do is ensure that they drop their materials in. And at first, I basically put something simple as in you also have the ability to add resources. So if I wanted to add a file, for example, I can go to OneNote, class, link, new file. I can go to Teams. I can also upload from my device. When I go to upload from my device, I'm going to go to drill bits review sheet. I'm just going to put this in. It uploads, done. So this is now a resource for the students. They know that this is the assignment. They also, what I also do is I would also tell them that this work is also in the files. If they wanted to, they go to the files to gather it themselves, or they can just come to the assignments itself. I can assign points, 20 points to this. I can add a rubric if I wanted to. It's assigned to this particular team, and I can also assign it a specific date. So I can change the date. And then here, and this is something that I haven't seen until now, is post assignment notifications on this channel. So it is the general channel. When I go to save, I can save the assignment, or I can also assign it. I usually just assign it. When it's assigned, my view of the assignment basically is this. I go to my assignments tab because I'm the teacher. I click on drill bits. I'm able to see who has submitted their work and who hasn't submitted their work. I can also see which ones I have graded. So I go to Jennifer's, for example, who says it's not turned in. If she has something turned in, I'll be able to see the work here, and I'll also be able to assign some feedback as well as a grade. Now, formative assessment tells me that, hey, I have the ability to take a look at the work, and if I need something here in terms of feedback of sort, I can create what I want to put in here. And I'll return it. So when Jennifer looks at her graded work now, she'll be able to see. The nice thing about this is I can flip through this and I can see that I've given them feedback, and you can also see if they've looked at it as well. Questions about assignments? If I want to see what the student will see, I can come up here to that particular assignment that I've just clicked on in my drill bit assignment. I can see student view, and it shows what they're going to see in their view as well.
Maybe I could just mention something, Luke.
Yeah.
If you go to the assignment that you asking the students to do.
Yeah.
So sometimes what we'll do is use the students can edit their own copy. Have you seen that option? It's
under student view. You want me to create another one? Yes.
Just go ahead real quick. Just I don't want to sabotage you.
No, no, you're not. You're not. I'll create another one, and I think I do remember.
Just when you add a resource.
Yeah.
Just grab any file. See in the 3 dots to the far right of that. Yeah. Sometimes we give students the option to do it that way. Yes. That's all I want to clarify.
No, that's good. Thanks, Carmen. I appreciate that.
It's one I often forget to select.
Yeah, that's something that I guess I forgot, and I knew about it, but I forgot about it as well. Yes. So it basically eliminates them getting a downloaded copy, correct?
Correct.
Okay, super. Thanks, Carmen.
Can I add a little quick thing?
Yeah.
As teachers are going to start using Teams, we all have lots of documents in our OneDrive that have been uploaded from our computers, and some of us have older files. I found out this summer if we have that doc extensions, which is the older Word, it does not allow you to edit them in the browser, and it does not allow students to turn or teachers to turn on the autosave. So in order to get them to be able to edit in the browser, if it's an older doc, I think it's best for teachers to, before uploading them, to save as, and save them as the new Office 365 extensions, which is docx, and then put them up, because they might encounter a student saying, I can't edit this or whatnot, because it's the older file version. And it's going to happen less and less as we move forward. But this year, I think we're going to get a lot of teachers using it, and that might happen.
Yeah, good point. Excellent point. And sometimes what will happen is you'll open up a document in Microsoft Word from your OneDrive, and it'll actually, when you go to resave it, it'll say that this is saved in a different format.
Yeah, and then select the new format, which is the docx, which integrates with Teams and Office 365 and the autosave much better.
That's right. Super. Thank you. Folks, I'm not sure if there's any other questions. I know it was kind of a quick run through. That's basically, those are the elements, I guess, that I've used in my classroom, and my students have had success with it. I've had success with it. It's been a learning curve even since the pandemic. And I know face-to-face will certainly be different. How it lends itself to middle or elementary, I'm not sure. At the high school level, it certainly worked out really well. I even had students who they couldn't log into their computer for whatever reason. They used their Apple device or their smartphone. They actually were able to log in and get the information from their phones as well. So the ability to have that cross-platform has been a saving grace for sure.
Luke, we've got one person here asking, can you show us how to copy a team?
How to copy a team?
I think when you went to create a team, there was a spot there where you could copy an existing template, I think. Malcolm, is that what you're referring to?
Create from a template? Malcolm, you can turn your mic on if you want.
All right, good morning.
Hey, Margot.
Hi. Someone said, I'm not sure who, that you could copy a team and all the students would follow, and that would give you more functionality than using the department created teams. So I'm just wondering if anybody there knows about that.
Mark, you had mentioned something about a copying a team, but that was more on the back side, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's still something we're looking at. I might have misspoke when I said the students transfer. I think you have to add the students manually.
Yes.
It's a quick, if you have your student list, it's literally a 1-minute job to add your students. It's quick. I think I misspoke when I said your students transfer, because it doesn't make sense to copy and the students go with it. It's the files that go with it, and in your channels and all that. And then you would add your students, and then you would have full control over that team. I'm sorry if I said the students transfer. I'm pretty sure they don't.
That's fine. You mean?
Well, do you want to try creating a team from what we just said here?
Well, I'm just concerned about whether or not, like, what control do I lose if I use the department team? Because I'm not supposed to make the team live until day one. So I can't actually get a list of students until we're in class.
Right.
If you have a team that you created, it lets you basically change the name of the team. Is where it's the only thing really you gain, because, for example, a phys ed teacher that has 22 classes of phys ed and they're all named pretty much the same way are looking for ways of how they can rename them, and it might be worth their time to actually copy and paste from a template and then enter the students and then give that team a name where when they open up their teams, they can see them. I'm saying phys ed, there's a lot of other subjects where you might have several classes. It might not be worth your time as well. It just depends. But the big thing you gain, I think, over copying and pasting is that you can edit the team name and stuff like that are locked from the district when you use those ones. Also, if you use the district one and the student added to your class, he will show up automatically.
Yeah. Okay. I've already a workaround for the name. I've created icons, BBT 9-1, 9-2, and and I just changed the symbol, so that makes it easy for me.
So Malcolm, your question, and I think I'm hearing you say that you've got you want to do work on creating a team.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that I didn't show was if you did, let's say you did create a team, and I know the district or the EECD is going to create teams for us, but let's say that you wanted to create your BBT 9 team for this year. One thing that you could do is, and before it even is live, is, and I think I've shown you this before, is when you go into your more options and you go into settings, you can actually create your team so that the students can join the team directly after you've got it set up. So by going to the settings, team code, and go generate. So then when they are joining a team, they can actually put this code here in to join your team.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Okay, because I know in my grade 9, instead of putting all of my students in all the teams I created when we were face to face, I created the teams. We had access to the lab, and all I did was put this full screen and said, okay, you need to now join my team, and this was the team code that you're going to put in.
Luke, we have a question here about class notebook. And I don't know if you can speak to that specifically, but maybe one of our other digital learning leads can. And it's just, have you used class notebooks? Do you know how that works?
I actually started with Class Notebook when Office 365 first came out, and I found that there's more functionality in Microsoft Teams than there was Class Notebook. But I guess I can't speak to the Class Notebook itself and how it works. I do know that there's just as many functions in Microsoft Teams as there is in the Class Notebook itself. I don't know if that helps out. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's asking about copying the members over, but I just did a quick test here. And when you copy from template and you go next, and you select your team you want to select, it asks you what do you want to copy with it, and members is one of them, with the files and everything. So yes, you can copy your students over. If you just go through it, you don't actually need to do it. But if you test it right now and you pick, well, you might not have a class right now because they're not ready. But it's a 10-second copy and paste, and you can select your members as well. If you could do and look and show it, yeah.
So I'll just pick any team, Mark?
Yep, any team. You're not going to need to go through with it. Just pick any team you want.
Okay.
And under the choose team, you'll see what you want to copy over, and there are the members. They don't copy over automatically, but if you select that, your kids will go with it.
Okay. Okay, so Malcolm, does that help a bit?
Yes, it does. Although, how come the channels tab is not clicked, like blacked out?
I guess it's because they automatically copy over, you know.
Okay.
By default. I guess you can't copy over the team without bringing the channels over. I guess what would be the purpose of copying the team if you don't want the channels?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. This is perfect. Thank you.
And Stacy, you can see there that Carm mentioned to you, if you want to look at class notebook further, reach out to one of the digital learning leads and we'd be happy to help you with that.
Yeah, there is some value with class notebook, but it's like another hour minimum. Like it's just a totally different program.
Thanks, Carm. Any other questions from anybody?
Is Diane Earl still on the line? Was she still here? So I wondered if my
Yep, she's still here.
okay. I just wondered if my question or my work to the assignments answered her question that she had earlier.
Folks, please feel free to open up your mic and ask any questions. There's a bunch of us here to support you and we'd be happy to help out.
Yvette.
Yes.
Hi, it's Denise. I'm just wondering, I had to step out for just a second, but I'm wondering, are we going to be able to add links within our assignments? Like I'm thinking of elementary.
Yes, you can add links. And have you had any work with Sway yet?
Not Sway, no.
That might be something.
I know a lot of people are doing a lot with Google and YouTube and things like that. And I know that those are questions that are going to come up.
Well, you can definitely put in a YouTube link into any type of document that you're creating, or into a channel, or we can look at it together and see how it might suit what you'd like to try.
Perfect. Thanks.
You're welcome. I'm just going to quickly put the link up for the spot where you can go in and apply for a prize. So make sure you do that. So I'll have that just before people start leaving. We still have some time to ask questions, but if people are leaving, then make sure you do that so you can put your name in for a prize. Okay, Luke, is there anything that teams cannot do that we will need in our classrooms? Will teachers need to use 2 platforms simultaneously? Suzanne, I think that'll be your preference of what will suit what you're trying to do, depending on your grade level and what you want your students to do. We are using Teams as one of our main platforms. We do have Fresh Grade as a main platform. We have D2L for our high school area. So it depends on what you're thinking of using in your classroom particularly.
Thank you for that. So to collect for assessment, I still can use Teams, and that it will meet those requirements. Because I have colleagues who are talking about using 2, one for their learning and one for assessment. But I can use, it seems to me that I can use Teams for everything right now.
You totally can.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, folks, if there's no other questions, I want to thank you all for coming. Thanks to my teammates for being there to help me out.
Luc, thanks so much for your time and your expertise. It's certainly nice to have a classroom teacher or someone that's been in the classroom just recently sharing this with us. It's really nice to see how it works in a real situation. Folks, make sure that you click on that link so that you can go in for the prizes that are available. There's lots of great prizes today. And at 3:45, there's a session with our MBTA president, and we'll find out who our different winners will be. And thank you so much for giving us some time out of your summer for this. And links will be placed up online, and that will be sent out for everybody to know where those are also.
And you may have to also copy and paste that link further up in the chat.
I'll go grab it.
I'll
grab it again. I can post it again. Sorry, Malcolm.
They can also access it through the chat on the left-hand side.
Right.
Thanks, Yvette.
I'll stop the recording. Thanks so much.
Have a good one.